Welcome, everybody. We got the energy for a new Ben and Ryan show. We have the partner in crime, Ben Nadel, joining us. And I don't know if, for those listening, you can't already tell the guests we have, but we have Luis Majano and Daniel Garcia joining us from Ortus and BoxLang. We're here today to talk BoxLang. So, guys, welcome. The most energized opening of any show. And Ben will be excited. This is the first time we've actually gone into the content within the first minute. So this is a big win for us. Generally, we just chit chat for about a minute and a half, and then we tell the audience what they're gonna listen to. So the audience is also going to be impressed. So
I want to know: is this your first international podcast? Do we have somebody from across the pond?
I don't know. I think
not sure, but I think maybe.
I think so.
Wow,
I am
across the already, Luis.
I know, man. I'm an overachiever.
So Luis is joining us here from Spain, and Daniel's from Chicago. So Windy City with great pizza. We discussed during pre-show. So yeah, guys. So BoxLang. So if people are tuning in, I'm guessing they have an idea of what BoxLang is, and our audience is primarily CFML developers of some kind. So they kind of know the landscape. But can one of you guys pick out who's going to give us like a 30-second, 1 minute kind of overview of what is BoxLang?
Sure. I'll take that one.
Since if I say it wrong, I don't want to look stupid in front of them. So,
So BoxLang is a new dynamic JVM language, right? That's our definition. And our three focuses are modularity, productivity, and of course the dynamic aspects of the language, right? So that is kind of in a nutshell what BoxLang is, right? It is a full JVM language. Now it has multiple capabilities, right, that we can go over and discuss. But essentially, BoxLang is setting itself as a new dynamic JVM language.
But it is a ColdFusion compatible parser, but then it also has a different primary parser for BoxLang specific syntax. Is that right?
Yes. So if we delve a little deeper now into how we designed it. So when we decided to do this, a little history for you guys, it's not like it was a spur of the moment kind of decision. It's actually something that, first of all, Brad was even always telling me that I was crazy, that we shouldn't do it. Jorge as well. So everybody, let's put it that way. So it wasn't a very light decision. It was not something that I woke up one day and said, let's do this, right? It has been pondered on for more than 6 years, 7 years, probably at this time. So it's something, there's a slide actually for an Into the Box keynote that we did a long time ago, where there's a chip, and actually on the chip it says BoxLang. So we even had the name for over 7 years at this point, right? We just never knew if this was something that was, first of all, feasible or something that we really wanted to do, right? Obviously, we have two vendors, right, that were producing, the CFML language, right? So obviously, we can go through the whole reasons of why we did it, right? But technically speaking, when we designed this, we started from ground zero. We did not fork anything. We did not basically start from any other projects. We really wanted to create a language of the times, right? The last JVM language, dynamic JVM language, was more than 14 years ago that it was launched, right? So, and it was Groovy. Kotlin is not dynamic. So Kotlin was launched in 2016, and it's a static language, right? So a dynamic language has been more than 14 years, right? So there really has not been any innovation in the dynamic aspects of the language. And we really see the dynamic languages taking off, right? Python, right? JavaScript, right? So all these languages that are dynamic have obviously an easier path of adoption, right? Easier to work with. Obviously, you have more responsibilities, right? Because you can do a lot of things that you can't with a static language.
Can I jump in just for a second? And for the listeners' benefit, as well as my own, can you just elevator pitch the difference between static and dynamic in your mind?
Sure. So let's start with the static one. So a static language basically is something that you're going to have to define a type, right? Or a generic type for everything when you're coding, right? And the compiler is your best friend here, right? So that means that there's lots of tools or lots of, what I like to say is there's a lot of bumpers on like if you're bowling, right? There's the lines that you put up for bowling, right? Because the compiler and the IDE tools are basically sending you left and right, saying, oh, no, you can't do that, or oh, no, that needs a try-catch statement, right? So a static language gives you that benefit that the compiler basically, you're giving it pretty much everything, right? The runtime aspects of your program really don't matter that much, right? Now, obviously, there can be runtime exceptions, right? But a static language just focuses on giving you types when you're defining the language constructs, and then when you compile it down, you know what you're getting, right? So that's a benefit, right? The benefit is you see that most of the static languages, would say 199.9% of them, they have to be compiled to their binary representation, right? With a dynamic language, you basically do not have to do that, right? Because a type could or could not exist, right? Or it could be something that is defined at runtime, right? Like in CFML that we've been doing for so many years, right? You can create a function with an argument of any, right? Which at runtime, you can now basically say, okay, if this is an array, do this. If this is a string, do that. If this is a struct, do that. You can change variables from one type to another. Static languages do not allow you to do that. Once you committed to a specific type, you're solid, right? You're there. So those are the differences. Now, you don't have as many guardrails in the dynamic world, right? Because something is going to be defined at runtime, right? So those are the differences, right? So that's why, you kind of separate them both into one that is mostly defined at runtime and the other one that's mostly defined at runtime. Make sense?
Gotcha. Yep.
PLDR with static, if you set foo equal to X, you can't reset foo equal to 1 later. Whereas with dynamic, you can.
Yeah. So there's a lot of little intricacies here and there between both of those languages types, right? But obviously, the dynamic language space, there was not a big, kind of new boom in over 14, right? So that was a big motivation to us. It's like there is an opportunity to innovate, right? There's a lot of things that have changed in the JVM space that we could take advantage of, right, today, right, for the next 20, 30, 40 years, right? So that's what we wanted. We wanted a modern language that can be able to adhere to those dynamic constructs, but we also wanted static constructs, right? And that's a big departure that we're doing in some areas with CFML, right? Then the other aspect was our history, right? We've been writing frameworks and libraries for 19 plus years. I mean, believe it or not, ColdFusion turned 19 this year, right? So it's crazy, right? And we still are going so strong with it and with so many plans for it, right? So all that knowledge of those 19 years, basically we said, if we wanted to do this, we need to have that ecosystem from day one, right? We could not basically wait another 19 years for people to build libraries and frameworks around BoxLang, right? So we basically said, okay, we're going to create the BLAST, which is the BoxLang abstract syntax tree, right? This is basically when you parse source code, it parses into what's called a parse tree. And then from the parse tree, it goes into a AST, right, that can be manipulated, these nodes. And then that AST can be transformed into the end product, which for us is bytecode, right? So we said, okay, we're going to treat the AST as our common language. So then we can take any piece of source code and basically create the source tree and adapt it to our AST. So the multi-parser aspects of BoxLang were designed this way. So we could take any language, so not only CFML, because we have plans for other languages to bring in to our sphere. We can take ColdFusion code, right? Whether they're CFC, CFM, it doesn't matter, right? ColdFusion code will be parsed by our grammars, moved into our AST, and then it will go into bytecode, right? And that's how we basically wanted to bridge the gap. So that process is called transpilation, right? So just like TypeScript, right? That allows you to basically to be a typed JavaScript, right? It still transpiles to JavaScript, right? So ColdFusion code basically gets transpiled to BoxLang and then to bytecode, right? And then we can take other languages, which next we want to hopefully do Groovy next, is we want to take Groovy code and basically transpile it to BoxLang so it can run native, right? Very cool. Now, obviously, we need to simulate those engines, right? Because BoxLang is a different language, and that's where the modularity comes in play. So we wanted to have the language to be modular so we could do this, right? And we've seen the issues of other vendors, right, when they do modularity. And obviously, the big advantage that we had here is we've been doing modules with ColdBox for more than 15 years, right? So we brought all that knowledge in and basically said, okay, in order for us to simulate a CFML engine, we just create a module, right? And then a module basically becomes the engine. All the intricacies, all the little warts, right? All the little intricacies of the language now go and they go into that module. And then basically the engine now becomes a pseudo CFML engine, right? So those two aspects were very big when we started designing this, right? Is that we wanted to be multi-parser, right? We wanted to be a new dynamic language for the JVM, right? And we wanted to run everywhere. So that's where multi-runtime comes in, right? And we are not in the age of just web applications, right? We're not. We're having multiple applications. We can run on a watch. We can run on an embedded device. We can run on serverless. We can run on the desktop, right? So we wanted to make sure that when we designed this, that we focused on the lowest point that we could get the bytecode to run in. And that was embedded devices, right? Basically ARM processors. So we basically designed the language to run on those processors first. And then from there, we started scaling all the runtimes, right, to the web, to serverless, et cetera, et cetera. So I think those are the three major things that make BoxLang completely different.
Now, is anyone doing this for not in the JVM space?
So the only language that I know that it does multi-runtime, which we got inspiration from, is Kotlin, right? So Kotlin was the original first multi-runtime language, I would say. I don't think there's any other language that has been designed with multi-runtime capabilities from day zero.
So
I'm sorry, one quick comment I want to make. I think, Ben, you said it early on about BoxLang. Actually, BoxLang itself is its own language. BoxLang core, it's BoxLang. Then with all these different modules we have a ColdFusion compatibility module that'll execute ColdFusion code. In the future, we have different runtimes. We're going to do all sorts of things. We have Lambda ones, we have other things. And when I first started, hearing about BoxLang, I too was one of the naysayers, like, Luis, what are you doing? And what kind of got it for me was the multiple runtime. So for example, if I want to run a web application, so if you're using ACF or Lucee and you want to run a web application, you install that, you have everything in the kitchen sink all bundled in together. Well, with BoxLang, you don't have to do that. With BoxLang, it can be very much plug and play. If I want to write a sweet, complete core desktop app to run some scripting, I don't need the web runtime. I don't need all these other overhead that you have to have with all these other engines.
Interesting.
And so once it clicked, like, wait a second, I can just build what I want for how I want it. It makes it more performant. It's shorter, smaller code base. I think, Luis, what was the core of BoxLang? Something like
the core right now is about 7.5 megabytes, and it's going to go actually. It's going to go down because we still have a lot of code there for metrics and debugging and stuff. But it's going to even go way down. But
crazy.
Yeah, I think the big architectural decisions that we made is that we did not want to be bound to a servlet context, which is what our CFML engines are bound to, right? That's where you hear page context, right? A page context comes from the servlet world, right? And we did not want to be attached to a servlet world. So we designed our contexts in a way that they were hierarchical, right? Just like we did hierarchical dependency injection and hierarchical MVC, right? Our contexts are hierarchical, and every context basically can do different things, right? So if you're at the operating system, right, you only have certain scopes available to you and certain things that you can do. If you are in a servlet world, you have more, right? Serverless, you have other things, right, et cetera. So we wanted basically the way that the multi-runtime aspects is that on every runtime that you deploy, the context can basically be decorated. Let's put it that way. So that basically allowed us for the entire language to be less than 7 megabytes.
Okay. So in a context, oh, sorry, Daniel, what'd you say?
It's faster because of it. If you don't need the kitchen sink, get it out of there and your code's going to execute faster.
So in a context like AWS Lambda, where there's not like a session scope or an application scope per se, that's where that kind of runtime can be really slimmed down. You don't get the page context kind of a thing.
Correct. So for serverless, I believe it's like 7.5 megabytes or something like that, because we add obviously some of the AWS libraries into it. There is an application scope actually on AWS.
Oh, there is?
So you can use applications. So because you can actually do RESTful services on Lambda, right? So a Lambda can actually become a RESTful service.
Gotcha.
So, and we've done a lot of work on Lambdas to actually allow you to actually work like a RESTful application.
So
let me ask a question on adoption. So you guys have been out there on the circuit, going to one of the shows, I see you guys at a lot of Java shows, actually across the board, a lot of shows in general. I shouldn't just not just Java. What's adoption look like so far for this? I mean, you're basically convincing people to do a new language in 2025 when everyone's vibe coding.
Yeah, well, I think that the way that we've addressed this is that we didn't just want a language, right? A language is a language nowadays. The semantics are pretty much the same across the board, right? Whether I'm doing Kotlin, Java, Python, or whatever, the language constructs are the same. So the niche is basically a few things, right? Which is the multi-runtime and then the framework capabilities, right? So being framework authors, we wanted this to be a productivity, platform, right? So it's not like we go and we sell the language, because we kind of just sell the language plus the framework capabilities, right? So, and that is what really has made a huge impact on folks when basically they see all the different modules that are available to them, right? That are curated by us and professionally supported by us, and that basically is what they don't get in other languages, right? And obviously we're going after the JVM space, right? So our competitors there are Kotlin, Groovy, Clojure, Scala, right, et cetera, right? So you basically go and we present the suite of utilities and framework capabilities that we have out of the box, and that basically is what they really are attracted to, right? The serverless was something that we never thought was going to be so attractive for folks. We actually did it for us, because we wanted to do the try.BoxLang application, right? That was our first production application, and we wanted that for us. And when we take it to the Java folks and they see that they just need one file by convention, because we put in all the framework conventions, whole box basically into serverless, so they can actually create more functions. They don't have to do weird Spring Bean annotations and all these stuff. And they just see that you drop the file, you put the functions and they're alive. They're like, oh my gosh, right? So that's where we're seeing the adoption becoming higher. And people were actually coding on their phones, right? Showing me here's a function. And then we're giving them obviously goodies, right? So we're giving them, hoodies or t-shirts and stuff. But, these Java developers come in and they actually are coding immediately on their phone. And that was a big win for us, because that's what basically said, okay, we're onto something, right? When you have all these Java developers and basically they're writing, pieces of code that actually works on their phone, right?
So where's the resistance? I mean, for people who don't adopt it right away, why are they like, why have all, at least for this, even the CFML community, for both groups, why have they not? Why hasn't everyone jumped on board?
We actually see a lot of people jumping on board, so I don't think we see actually a resistance at this point, to tell you the truth. I think a lot of people were waiting for us to go stable. So to be honest, we don't see a resistance at all. We actually see everybody basically coming to us and saying, hey, how do we migrate? How do we move? Et cetera. And then from the Java spaces, it's different, because people, they want tooling, and that's what we've been focusing on. Right. And that is the big detriment that we've had in the CFML world, is that our tools really suck. Right. And this is something that from day -60, we said, no, right. Our tools got to basically rock. Right. We're going to have to build amazing tools for developers that are in the JVM space, because they already have all these tools. Right. They want that. Right. They want the guardrails. They want the bumper lanes. Right. So that's what we've been focusing a lot on tooling, not only on the language aspects. So we actually, the biggest hesitancy on people are like, obviously, it's not like they're going to drop the current language, right, and basically start moving everything to another language. I mean, it's really something that we don't expect to happen. I mean, if it does, probably that's 1 in 1,000, right? But the way that we've done BoxLang is that basically you can see it from 2 angles. You can work on BoxLang or CFML code, right, and use Java libraries. Or if you look at the side from a Java developer can actually leverage BoxLang just like another library, because that's the way we did it. It publishes to Maven. We basically put it as another dependency, and now you have all the framework capabilities available to you in your Java application. So that's what has attracted the Java developers, is that like, hey, look, we have an enterprise caching engine that we've developed, right? You want to use it? Sure, just drop it in your dependency through Maven or Gradle and instantiate the runtime, and there you go, right? So that has been a real attraction, that they don't have to basically rewrite the maps, right? They can basically, if they're in the Java space, they can just use our BoxLang as a framework, and that's what we want, right? So you have all the options on the table for people to pick and choose as they see fit. Let's put it that way.
The only other station I've kind of seen is where people just don't quite understand what BoxLang is or why it's cool, and it's the FUD, right? Fear, uncertainty, and doom. It's something new. Oh no, it's a witch. I don't know. And it's just like they don't want to be bothered. When we first launched, we first made the big announcement was 2024 in May at Into the Box, and we got a ton of positive comments. Well, there are some people that just didn't understand it, didn't want to take the time to understand it, and just so you get some of that from a lot of old school legacy developers. I was one for many years. But Ortus, we're a modern company. I mean, our podcast is modernize or die. We're always pushing things forward, and you can't be running the same way that you ran 10, 15, 20 years ago, because it's not sustainable. And so part of that is just perception.
Way to plug a competing podcast.
You know what?
Oh, I didn't say it, Ryan. I'm behaving.
Man. It's not like I'm saying go check out, someone's.
I'm just messing.
Man,
is there I know you said that this is like 6 or 7 years in the ideation / making. Are there unlocks in Java 21 and other recent versions of Java that finally made this feasible in a way that it wasn't maybe 6 years ago?
I think so. I think that there are many things that, well, in all honesty, since JDK 11, I think there have been many things that the JVM basically changed, right? There was a session I went to here in a Java conference here in Spain, and they were going through the timeline, right, of the JDKs as they're starting to publish, right? And obviously the lapse between JDK 8 and 11 was like 3 years or 4 years or something like that, right? JDK 8 has been the most stable version ever of Java, right? And I'm sure people are still gonna run it for a long time. But since Java 11, I would say, is when things changed in our space for the JVM. They really got their act together. And I think they have been really innovating. They have a consistent life cycle, right? That the whole train leaves the station, right? Every year, right? For Java, whether the things are created or not, right? And that has made Java agile again. And now we have, versions that are major versions every year, right? And they're fully compatible. I don't know what people just don't upgrade, because the majority are fully compatible, right? And that has made our Java space, I think, more vibrant than ever in the last 5-7 years, I would say, than ever before. So I think Java is really back in great momentum, right? And learn from their past and really producing some amazing pieces of software, right? So I think everything aligned for us. Let's put it this way. And right. I think that if we would have done this before, probably we would not have been able to do it. So we're in the age of AI. I think AI was a big part of building BoxLang, right? We used it as a partner for everything that we did, right? So it's part of our life cycle. I mean, I love documentation. We use it for documentation. We use it for peer-to-peer reviews, right? So the age of AI has really made this, that we basically went from 0 to a 1.0 stable release in 20 months with 99% compatibility with the other engines. So this would have, and the group, we're not big tech. We don't have a gazillion dollars of investment here. This was all basically built by passion, by us, right? It really was. It was, we basically had to be incredibly wise with our finances to be able to separate our services that we do at Ortus and produce a product division, right? We didn't get anything from anybody, right? So only for me being a Christian man, I got it from the Lord. So that's it. It was basically a way that we did this in an orderly fashion, right? So we could do it, and we didn't even know it was possible, right? But I have to be honest, right? Now the snowball is gone at this point. There's nothing stopping it at this point. We're moving everything, right? Even if nobody uses it, we're still going to use it for our stuff, and we're going to continue innovating it, right? So it has cleared the station, and now it has gotten into its own life, and it's now out there, right? But yeah, it was something that it just came out of being really organized and meeting with these guys, and we did I think it was like 4 or 5 meets throughout the year in different locations: Chicago, Nashville, Kansas City, right? We were going everywhere and bringing the different parts of the team, right? And basically building everything, right? So it has definitely not been easy to do at all. And it was really a strain for us in that sense. But we reached it.
Daniel, I will say that I'll mention it also because I'm purely kidding. The Modernize or Die podcast. That was my first podcast when I came into Expedite Cloud. The first podcast I started listening to kind of learn, because I was new to ColdFusion space and CFML and all that. So it's the first podcast I started listening to kind of get a handle on things. So it's fun, purely in jest. But I have 2 questions on the AI front.
Sure.
One, we talk about this on the show, AI, like any development type show, a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious, because you mentioned all the AI that are using internally to develop this. So I'm curious if you can give us some insight into what tools you use, and because you mentioned documentation creation. So any tools you use and kind of where you use them, and even the peer reviews, because I think the audience would love to hear that. And then on a follow-up on AI, actually answer that question, then I'll go to the follow-up.
Sure. So there's many things we're doing with AI a lot nowadays. Obviously, I think that if you're not doing this, then you're going to stay behind, right? So when we started this, I think I was on a beta even for Gemini. But Gemini wasn't even out. It was in beta. I think ChatGPT was probably the only contender available at the time. So we had ChatGPT licenses for the team. VS Code didn't even have the integrations yet, right? So it was basically through those chat models, basically building what we thought were models that we wanted to do. And the first thing that we did was invoke dynamic, right? Is basically the ColdFusion world has reacted, but the dynamic world, not only ColdFusion, because other dynamic languages basically relied on reflection, right? Java reflection, which is basically the old capabilities that Java provided for you to do runtime executions, right? I have a Java object, I want to execute a method on it. I can introspect it, I can see what I need to send, manipulate, and then invoke it, right? You can even change a public method to a private method, or a private to a public, right? So all these capabilities are in Java, the reflection package. And that has been deprecated for many, many, many years, right? Since Java 8, let's put it that way. So our CFML partners have basically relied on this. And I know Lucee basically has moved into his own approach, right? But the invoke dynamic framework was actually released in Java 7, right? And this was basically created for framework and language developers to work with dynamic languages, right? So we basically started creating a model to create our first proof of concept of basically doing Java execution with invoke dynamic with ChatGPT at the time. So that's how we basically started modeling things, right? There was not a lot of tooling, right? And at the beginning, now it's obviously, the explosion, right? So we continue to have those ChatGPT, but we also use Claude a lot. I definitely can attest that Claude has, I would say, a lot better for coding models, right? ChatGPT, we leverage it for other things, such as image creations, image manipulations, and also for a little bit of code reviews as well. It's good at that, right? So we leverage those. Now that VS Code has those capabilities, we now have our own BoxLang agent available to you. So this is a localized agent that's available to anybody that installs VS Code in our module. and it comes pre-trained with BoxLang. So you can ask it questions already about how to do this in BoxLang. How do you do this? How do you do that? And we feed it all of our docs and all our API docs, and it's going to be getting smarter and smarter, but it's localized. It's basically going to be learning from you, right? So how Ben codes and he likes his white space, right? Gonna basically do it his way, right? So that's what we wanted, right? And we wanted something localized for developers, and that's another tool, right? So the localized BoxLang agent will learn from you and teach you, right, all the different aspects of it if you don't understand, right? So we do all those. Now GitHub, when you do pull requests now, you also have Copilot. We leverage that as well, right? So Copilot can actually give us on every pull request different insights of that pull request that we're doing for any part of the language or the module, right? So we leverage that for those. And then for documentation, I go back and forth between ChatGPT and Claude, and I have a project basically that I have given it all the different intricacies of the language, even the parsers. So I basically taught Claude in this example all the different intricacies of the BoxLang language and the CFML language, right? We have also created differences, like in the documentation pages, you see the differences between both languages. So developers can know what are the differences between if they're fully migrating from CFML, let's say, to BoxLang. That's also trained to the model. And then with that, I also teach it how I like code samples to be, my white space. I actually give it the Ortus coding standards to it, right? And basically have my documentation project. And every time that I need a new page, I basically go there. I basically start iterating. You know, I want you to show this. I want you to show that. I feed it different Java classes or different, pieces of software, and it starts building it. So if I built documentation before, now I'm even more excited about it because I'm building it, and that's nuts, world. Right? So that is basically so exciting for me that I can build so much docs now so easily, and I'm basically just proofreading, right? Proofreading, adding notes, adding more code samples, right? I even basically taught it how to actually encrypt the code from try BoxLang, which we do a normal base64 encoding. So now when it actually does the samples, it actually will create the try BoxLang links for me. So I don't even have to go manually and go paste them. No, it'll create those, and then I can just basically adapt them, right? So we leverage as much as we can. And then that's why we created the BXAI modules. So every developer that's using BoxLang can use it, right? So it's an abstraction layer to every LLM, and that was important, right? I think there's only one library in the Java world that does this, which is Lang4Chain. And what this gives you is basically an abstraction module. So if Ben wants to do Gemini or wants to do Grok or wants to do ChatGPT, it doesn't matter. He's still going to have his own, the same kind of constructs, and then he can switch the models behind the scenes, right? Obviously, if he's adhering to a very intricacies of the language models, then obviously that's out the window, right? But we wanted to bring an abstraction layer to all LLMs, a nice, fluent, dynamic approach to it, right? And that's where Ray has gone crazy, right? Building all these samples and things with BXAI, right? And now we even have one for coding, right? You can actually just say it, I want to spit out a function, and it knows how to do it, right? So the BXAI is a big part for developers that are CFML or BoxLang developers to assist them in integrating with any LLM very, very easily. And we have big plans for it. We're just started. I mean, we just launched our first version 1.2 or something. So we're still iterating quite fast on it. We are almost finished with the MCP server. So this means that every BoxLang application is going to become an MCP application. I think that this is the way that we see it. We see this as being core. Every application, we're going to be building applications just for AI consumption, let's put it that way. So we believe that it should be core. So the BXAI module would basically, if it's installed, then you as a developer are going to be able to register tools and resources, and automatically it's going to basically announce them. So any MCP host basically can target, right? So that way you don't have to do anything manually. Right? So all these things are coming into these AI modules, and this space is quite fastly iterating. Let's put it that way. So MCP servers are probably not even 6 months old, right? So it's quite intriguing. It's quite unnerving of all the things that are happening and the future that we're going to be in, to tell you the truth. But in this was the right moment for us to build this.
It's a kind of a practical example too. At ITB this year, we showed all the cool AI goodness. We had a group come up to us that wanted us to help them build a POC of integrating AI with their application. So part of their application, they had a messaging system where you had to collect some info. Basically, they wanted them to collect the info, send it over to ChatGPT to spit out a nice email that then their people can then edit to taste and then send it out. Just something as simple as that. Feed it 3 or 4 bullet points, and then it just makes a nice email that they can just use. So even something as simple as that, we got a lot of excitement going on right now with all the AI.
So follow. Oh, go ahead, Ben. I've been asking a few questions.
Well, so I know I've probably asked Luis and Brad this several times via various LinkedIn comment threads, but as someone who vaguely understands that ColdFusion is running on top of Java, but I'm in no way a Java developer, and I don't understand all the intricacies of Java and the implications of what having a Java runtime is. I have an install of Command Box, and I'm sure almost every developer in the CFML world is familiar with Command Box at this point. But my install's got to be, I don't know, 5 years old or something at this point, it feels like. And I have several times tried to update it. I don't exactly know what that means. And I have yet to be able to actually get a BoxLang server to run through Command Box. Do I have to like completely uninstall the old version because the new versions run on Java 21 or something? What hurdle do you think I'm hitting?
Probably you have a lot of stuff in your Command Box home. So usually, and this happens a lot, when you're developing and you haven't updated it for so long, or for us that we're developing on it all the time, right? You get corruptions, you get all kinds of weird stuff. I would say for anybody that kind of reaches that, the best thing to do is just basically get your .command box and your users and just wipe it. In all honesty, just wipe it out and then run the binary again, and it'll reconstruct the home again. So that I would say is the easiest route. Is that once in a while, clear out your home, man, and start fresh.
With the latest.
I mean, in all reality, the point about Command Box is for you to destroy it, right? It was never meant to be like you give it a name, right? It's like destroy it, rebuild it.
I mean, all I'm doing is start CF engine equals box or whatever, BoxLang. But it would get to a point where some Java class doesn't exist or isn't available or something.
Yeah, I would say just clear out your home, download the new binary, click it up again, and that's it.
All right. Groovy.
If that doesn't work, you get you Brad's home phone number, and he can happily walk.
we can make that happen.
Okay, so a serious question though. Just speaking, touching again on this sort of, I understand CFML, but I don't understand servers kind of a thought here. So as someone who is not necessarily comfortable running my own technology, I'm a programmer, not an admin, I would rely on someone like Ryan or, something like XByte or whatever, Media 3 or whoever. And historically, the managed hosting providers have always been very hesitant to support anything other than Adobe ColdFusion. I think XByte will support Lucee, but you got to twist some arms, I think. Do you guys have any plans to work with some of the vendors to see if you can get kind of a managed support, or is this primarily for people who are comfortable running their own stuff?
No, I think this is for all, right? So, we even talked to Ryan before. So, we would love all vendors to basically bring another technology to their stack, right? Obviously, some technologies compete with each other, but, it is what it is, right? But our intent is there are people that love that kind of stuff of DevOps, and there are others that hate it, right? So the easiest route that we can do for those people, the better, right? And that's for, again, tooling, right? That's where we created a lot of tools as well for BoxLang, right? So people that don't want to be able to set this up can do it very easily, right? We have the BoxLang version manager now released, the VVM. We also have the BoxLang quick installers as well. And obviously, we've been having command box, which command box is still in flux because command box is going to be basically just part of BoxLang, right? So, and we can talk a little bit about that as well. But no, I mean, our intent is to talk to vendors and say, look, here are other alternatives. We'll support you. I mean, the whole idea is for us to be professional open source, right? This is the way that we've been doing business for more than 19 years, and we want to keep that, right? This is just another product on the same stack, right? Just like we'll support people with ColdBox, with TestBox, with CommandBox, right? Now it's another product that we can help support. But you're right. I mean, I think that now that it's getting out there and everything, the whole idea is, basically talking to all vendors and saying, hey, you can offer this in your stack now.
Yeah, and Ben and I just talked about actually the whole BoxLang support and on previous podcasts as well. For us, and I don't want to talk to what other vendors do. We do a lot of work on our expertise in certain areas, and to put that kind of time and energy and money behind something, there needs to be a demand for it. So we're never going to be that first adopter company because of that.
Right.
For better or for worse.
Yeah. No, it makes sense.
That's just not ours. But we would love to see that demand to us come and support more products. I would love nothing else to see that. So we can keep chatting and maybe we work out a deal after the show. Who knows?
And what Ryan says is pretty much what everybody says. It's the way it is, right? It's for a new adoption for technology. It takes time. It takes resources, and it takes demand. So I think those are the things that will float, right? I think that we want to lower the barrier as much as possible from our space, and then the vendors I know will organically basically build around it, right? So and it's not like you're not alone right now. I mean, you have BoxLang cloud servers available now, even from day zero, right? So the day that we launched, you can actually go to AWS, you can go to Google Cloud, or you can go to Azure, and you can get your BoxLang servers already now, right? You have your BoxLang containers, right? So you can basically go to any vendor and basically deploy your containers now, right? So we really wanted to do that. And there's another vendor here in France that actually just launched BoxLang support, which was a surprise for us, which they're called Clever Cloud, right? So Clever Cloud basically now offers BoxLang.
Clever.
After we met them in a conference in Barcelona, and they came up to us and they've got it approved, and then now they're launching BoxLang, stuff in their hosting. So we know that it takes time for all these organic things to basically put organized around the stack as we progress. So, but we want to make sure that the entry barrier is low for folks.
Let me ask another question, just totally random here. I know from previous experiments in, I think, Node, where I could have a text file, and at the very top of the text file, there's just like a pseudo comment that's like bin/node, and I can turn that file into an executable, and the operating system knows to look for Node. With the modularity of BoxLang, is there ever a world where I could have like a /bin/BoxLang and just have a text file that I could make executable if it's like a limited subset of file IO directives or something?
You could do that since almost 10 months ago. So those are called the shebang scripts. So those are called shebang scripts, and that's using /bin/env. So that's all fully documented, Ben. Fully documented. You can go to the docs. You can go to where it says running scripts, and it's there. You can just say, #bin/env BoxLang, and then code in script, right? So this was really something we wanted. We actually did this with CommandBox, right? It was just super slow because obviously it still has to spool up a servlet, right? But for us, it's extremely fast. Actually, it's faster than Node, right? So you can do that now. Our big focus is on CLI. So you can build full CLI applications with BoxLang now. You can get input from users. You have a new server.cli scope. So you can actually see what people executed, the path that it was executed from. We actually parse all the different arguments that you do through CLI, just the standard approach of CLIs, right? It'll give you positional arguments. It'll give you optionals. All that is basically baked into the BoxLang OS version of it, right? So You can even schedule. You can even replace cron, which was what we're doing, right? You can say BoxLang schedule and pass it in a scheduler, class, and now you have your own schedule, right? And that's something that we've always wanted with ColdBox, for example, right? Is that we wanted to be scheduling at the operating system level, but now you can with BoxLang, right? So this is first class, right? You can just say BoxLang schedule, and it's all fully documented, right? You build your scheduling class, and now you don't have to use cron. You can build that into a mini container, right? And just deploy it, right? So we really wanted to focus on the CLI a lot, right? Because I wanted to script on BoxLang. I didn't want to do bash, right? I wanted to do, like my CFML style, right? Which technically that's what it looks like, right? BoxLang, right? It's just have more features, right?
Yeah.
But in all honesty, it just looks like CFML combined with, a little bit of Groovy, right? So you have all those things available to you now. If you want to go do scripting, go do it. We have our demos in GitHub that maybe we'll put in the chat. But we've been working on tons of demos that Ray has been working on as well, specifically for what you said, right? CLI scripting at the operating system level.
Crazy! I had no idea. That's awesome.
So I have so many questions on the AI front. So with AI. One of the things I've learned, because we internally use an ERP that's not like the NetSuite of the world, although they compete with them, but they're not at quite the scale. And so when you go, and there's some certain nuances with it, and when you go to like the ChatGPTs of the world and you ask it a question, it comes back with, "Oh, do this," and I'm like, "Oh no, I know my ERP. This is how a lot of other people do it, but this one little thing doesn't do it that way. That's why I'm coming to you."
Yeah.
How do you kind of combat that with BoxLang when all these other languages have lots of history, and so the LLMs have had a chance to digest all of that and can use that information? And then as a secondary piece of that, how does anyone like you kind of with something new get the ChatGPTs of the world to start using your stuff as examples? So if you said, "Hey, I need to code this," how do you get them to kind of by default use a BoxLang to be what they show coding?
Well, the more you use it, the more they're going to learn, right? So the language models are not impervious to not learning, right? So that's why the more that we use it, and that's why I turn to use all of them, right, is to feed them all this information so they can do that. So that's one thing. The second one is there's a project called Context 7 that basically allows you to basically digest or ingest documentation. And we basically put all our docs there as well, right? So they're ingesting basically all the BoxLang docs. And when there was a new version, you hit a button update, and now it's ingesting and teaching all the models, right? So at the beginning, obviously, you have to teach it, right? That's why we created the BoxLang agent for VS Code. It's like we wanted to create that model locally, so it's learning, right, from you, so you can basically, it's already pre-learned. But it's going to take some time for these things to do it. But in all honesty, if you go right now to any of these LLMs and ask it, they already know. So it might not be 100%. It actually will mix a little bit of CFML within BoxLang, right? But it's getting there. So I think it's just a matter of time, right? That they're going to be learning all the intricacies about BoxLang. So the more people use it, the more they feed it, the more it's going to learn.
The other week, I was just messing around on a weekend, and I went to Cloud and said, "Make me a BoxLang app. Make me a Zork." Remember the old Zork game from way back when? The text asked them to make me a Zork game with using BoxLang, and it did it. Now it didn't quite work, but then I got tired and hungry, so I stopped playing. But it gave me a whole code base of everything with Zork and BoxLang and CodeBox, and I was pretty blown away.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with AI is that obviously it's getting a lot smarter and all that stuff. But in all honesty, you have to be involved, right? You have to iterate with the models, right? I would suggest, this goes for all the young developers that just basically do copy paste from the LLMs, is that you're going to get in trouble if you continue to do that, right? Especially if you don't know what it's doing, right? I think that the tool is there for you to learn and for you to become more agile. And leverage these tools, right? Not to just blindly do a copy paste, right? And then you get to a code review, you ask them, "Why did you do this?" And everybody go, "Oh, the ChatGPT told me," right? So I think that this is not for me meant to replace developers. It's actually to make you look like you're 5 developers, right? So I don't think I've ever been as productive in my life as I am now because of these tools, right? I can basically.
Luis, I'm trying to picture Luis being even more productive, and it scares me.
Oh no, we lost him.
No, we lost him. Well, it's funny, Luis, like every day or two, he's got a new like project. He's like, hey, check this out, check this out, check this out. And I used AI to generate a proof of concept for this, and I was able to do that. I'm like, what are you doing? We're still, it's pretty cool. And kind of being on the inside here, seeing how the sausage is made was really a cool experience the last several years of how BoxLang came to be and all the discussions and architecture and just kind of, because I'm an old school ColdFusion guy. I've been using it since version 4. And so, the first group of people that they had to convince of BoxLang was Ortus people. And so once we kind of like understood where it was going, it just our minds, or at least for me anyway, maybe I was the only one, but my mind was like, oh, it says what? And so.
Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah,
we can.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I lost a little bit of electricity here, but
oh no,
siesta.
my main monitor that just died. So either one. But anyways, I'm just on my laptop.
You're so electric. It took all that you sucked up all the electricity. You're like, yeah, I'm so excited.
All right, let me ask another language question here, because as we alluded to earlier in the call, ColdFusion is built on top of Java, and the boundary between CFML and Java has always been a little squishy and like not always clear, I think, on what's going to work well and what's not going to work well. And ColdFusion has always been able to pull out of Java quite easily, but not necessarily push things into Java as easily. And one of the boundaries that I've run into historically is with things like the Redis library, which is Java. It's a Java library for Redis.
Yep.
And I've always wanted to play around with their pub sub functionality, but the way that their pub sub functionality works is that you have to define a class that actually extends a Redis class, like a Redis pub sub client class.
Correct.
And like in Adobe, that I feel like they said that would work, and I've never been able to get it to work. And I don't know if Lucee has anything like that.
Never as well.
Is there any new unlock in the BoxLang world that makes something like that a little easier?
So those pains that you're talking about is basically the limitations that Java Interop has had for us as CFML developers, right? And we basically created tickets for this for more than 7 years, right? With very specific details. I mean, go check out their JIRAs and their bug trackers. You'll find Brad and myself based 1,000 tickets. So.
Oh. We just lost your audio, I think.
We wanted all these things available for us, and it just never happened.
Can he hear us?
Short version, Ben, is BoxLang treats Java as a first-class citizen for full interoperability. So things that you could not do with the other languages, with the other engines, you can do with BoxLang.
Is that better?
You're breaking
You
up.
sound like a robot.
Me too, or just Luis?
No, just
No,
Luis.
just Luis.
Just Luis.
You're great, Daniel.
So I've been told.
All right, so that's cool. So that it sounds like there's a lot here to be very excited about, actually.
Yeah,
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep. And so,
yeah,
again,
so
a lot of it. Oh, go ahead, Luis.
No, I was saying that we've had all these tickets for all these things for a long time, and the first library that basically created this conundrum was the RabbitMQ library a long time ago, right? So another of the pillars that we said that when we started with this adventure is that Java Interop had to be fluent. We did not want any barriers, right? We did not want, first of all, Java developers coming into BoxLang to feel like it's extremely different and disjointed. And then from a CFML point of view, we wanted CFML developers to be able to interact, not only ingest, but push, like you said, to Java libraries easily without you knowing all the differences and the stupidities of Java, right? And that's what we did, right? So you can extend Java, you can implement Java, you can import Java, right? You can interact with Java naturally. You can actually copy paste Java code, right? And 95% of it will work in BoxLang, right? So the Jedis stuff, you can create a class that basically extends the Jedis one, and then basically just consume it. You can actually use Java, BoxLang closures or lambdas that you're used to, right? And pass them in as lambdas to Java, and that will work. We create the bridge for you, right?
What?
So we do all the bridges, so you as a CFML developer don't have to deal with Java. That was a big deal, right? And all of that works, right? All of the tickets that we've created for years are completed in BoxLang, right? Let's put it that way. So,
man, it's funny you mentioned RabbitMQ, and I can swear that I went to a presentation that you did at like CF Objective 15 years ago or something, and you're talking about using RabbitMQ, and I was like, oh, this guy's living in the future. This stuff is so cool.
Well,
you have all kinds of these things now available to you.
Well, earlier, Ryan, you asked about people adopting BoxLang. I think one of the coolest stories was last year, and I'm gonna have Luis tell it because he can say it more specifically. But Sean Corfield, he had an app that was running on Rilo 4.5 that he couldn't upgrade and move to Lucee. And then once we came out with BoxLang, he dove in head first, was all excited, and got his app modernized and upgraded and off of Rilo and onto BoxLang. And it was a really, really cool thing to see that, he's like, oh, this is great. I've been wanting this for years, and now somebody did it.
That's awesome. I remember seeing him discuss that in Discord, and he was very excited.
Yeah, I think that we had a lot of pain points as CFML developers, and we wanted to alleviate those, and that's what we've done. So, and Java interrupt was a big one, right? Yeah. We wanted to make sure that Java basically moved forward, but we didn't. So that's why we needed to move forward, right? We couldn't stay behind. And the whole adoption of the fluent constructs that Java has adopted, there's other things that are even coming down the pike for Java as well, right? The ability to call static methods, right? Default methods on interfaces, right? All these things that we wanted, right? That I couldn't even execute a default method on an interface from Java, right? I couldn't even do it, right? I had to build my own Java reflection to do it, right? So, we really wanted to make sure that the experience for the developer was, that the language didn't work against you, but basically, we wanted to be that mediator, right, between the Java world, which is basically our ancestors, right, and the CFML BoxLang world, which are our contemporaries, right?
It sounds very Apple, where you ran up to limitations, and you're like, okay, I need to own the entire ecosystem in order to do what I want to do. So you know what? I'm just going to create the whole ecosystem, and then there's no barriers.
BoxLang
I mean,
source though.
Oh, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Apart from that,
we give it to you for free, most of it.
Yeah, but you're right, Ryan. I mean, after 19 years of building frameworks and libraries for the CFML ecosystem, I mean, and we were adamant about it. It was like, somebody would come and show us a Node app and, showing us WebSockets, and we would be like all pissed off because we can't do it, right? And then, we'd sit in a room with Brad and boom, now we have it, right? Or this and that. And it has taken 19 years to develop so many tools and libraries, right? To get to where we are. And like you said, it was like at this point, we cannot continue to innovate. We were completely stifled. We couldn't go where we wanted. And the only way that we saw forward was to move to another ecosystem, right? That could move as fast as we wanted to go, or basically continue with the ideas that we wanted. And that's exactly what we did. It's like everything aligned. I mean, to be honest, we're the ones that are doing all the libraries for ColdFusion mostly, right? We do the package managers, the MVC frameworks, testing frameworks, right? AOP frameworks, right? Dependency injection, all the different stuff comes from some form or another from a Box team member.
Yeah.
Right. And, we wanted to push forward, but we just couldn't, So at this point now, we finally can, right? So even like probably next month, we're going to have a new runtime for the desktop. So now you can build your entire desktop applications on BoxLang/CFML, right? Completely, right?
What?
So the BoxLang administrator, the BoxLang admin that we're building is a ColdBox app, but it'll run on your desktop, right? So this new runtime is going to be available pretty soon here, and it'll allow Ben to create an own desktop little widgets and apps, natively. And he doesn't have to learn JavaScript. He doesn't have to learn all the intricacies of that, right? So, and that's what we're some of the places that we are going to be able to go, right?
So I have a question based on last week's podcast we did about the Adobe Hackathon. Do you guys have a BoxLang charting?
A what?
Do you guys have charting capabilities from within BoxLang?
We've discussed this for a long, long time on how to do it. And the reality is that everybody does it differently, right? And we're still debating of what would be the best avenue for us to create, our charting capabilities. Because, to be all honestly, I can just grab something from JavaScript and embed it and be done, right? The moment that you encapsulate that into a module is the moment that is already deprecated, or at least you're going to have to update it, right? So it's UI concerns are such a moving target, right? That if you do it, you have to kind of go all in, and you have to make sure that you keep up to date. And that's very difficult, right? So I think that nowadays, creating charting is become so easy, especially now with the AI tooling, that I can just say, give me a JS chart, here's my JSON. Sometimes we just say, maybe it's just better to produce good JSON and feed it into the JavaScript library to produce it, right? So we're still in debate about charts. We still don't know what we're going to do with it.
I was just trying to create some good tension between Ray and you. Because Ray was big on, no, keep back end out of my front end. Like, do not mix the two. So he was pretty much against the Adobe features of their charting.
I think that for us, it's kind of the same deal. It's like the front end can be done in many, many, many ways, in many frameworks, whether you're using Angular or React or Vue.js or Alpine or just straight up vanilla JavaScript. So I don't know if we want to dictate there. I think that it's probably not our position to do that. So we might offer just something to bring compatibility. I think that might be the way that we'll do it, is that we'll bring something that's very simple that just will give you the basics to bring you compatibility. But with the big caveat that this is a UI concern, you should be using a UI library.
At the end of the day, there's always a Java library out there somewhere that if you really wanted to, you can easily work with to do that server-side charting if you had to.
Yeah. And now you're available to do that, right? You even have Maven integration in BoxLang. So you can go to the BoxLang home and basically copy paste from Maven, and that's it. It's going to be available in your entire runtime, right?
Watching Ben's face. We've been busy, Ben, the last couple of years.
It's bonkers. It's bonkers.
27 months, maybe, is it, Luis, from the first commit to today?
Yeah, I think the first commit was like August of 2023 or something like that.
Okay, so I know again that this was like a 6-year journey in the making. Maybe as a closing thought here, because I have to get back to work. Was there a straw that broke? Was there a straw that broke the camel's back? Did you run into a syntax error and you're like, this is it. We need to have our own language. I can't deal with this anymore.
Bug filed, and you just forget it.
What was the desk flipping moment where you're just like, this is it. We have to try it again. I can't live like this anymore.
I think those moments, we were having those moments probably weekly. Yeah. So it wasn't really one moment that we recalled where it was, this is it. I think it was an accumulation of weekly issues and dealing with the whole concept of isn't ColdFusion dead? And this, there, and that, and dealing with a person that's dealing with licensing issues or another person that never gets a response. So I think it was a really a huge amalgamation of all these issues that have been accumulating for years. And to be honest, they're not going to feed me, right? Or feed my team, right? So it's either we take authority, right, and produce what we feel is our path forward for us to innovate, right? Because I cannot rely on other people to bring me the business that I need to continue to innovate and service my customers, right? So this was not a decision for us. It was more of a decision of how do we continue to service our client base with all the different products they've already bet on, right? Coldbox,
Mhm.
Testbox, Sandbox, right? How do we continue to service them, when they're having so much friction, right? While the entire world keeps innovating, right? So I think it was a huge mixture of things in that sense that brought us to that area. And then for me, as you know, a man of faith, I think for me it was in moments of prayer where, I felt that this was the time. Either I did it or it was not going to be done, period. So I felt a huge kind of scolding and prompting to say, you have to push forward, because I've delayed it for so long. And I delayed it for a long time when I knew that I should have began the project, right? So mixtures of things.
Yeah.
To be
Well, it's
fair,
very exciting.
we said the first code commit was like 2 years ago, but they've been thinking about this for years.
Right.
And they went to the very thoughtful approach. It wasn't like Luis woke up one day, it's like, I'm going to do it. Let's do it. Brad, start coding. I mean, they planned for it. They did a lot of architectural discussions and probably talked a lot more. I don't know when the first real discussion, Luis, that, hey, we're going to do this was what, 3-4 years ago at that point, or
Probably. I mean, we even did feasibility studies. I mean, we went to the vendors and we said, how can we help? I mean, we did everything possible to keep our community moving forward, right? And we just couldn't get a response. So it was, and I don't want to speak badly about them, right? They've done tremendous for us. We wouldn't exist if Micromedia, Adobe, Lair, Lucee, if they didn't exist, I wouldn't exist, right? So they are my pioneers, right? But the reality is that I think we wanted that torch, and we wanted to do our run, right? Whether we fail or not, I cannot tell you that, but I wanted to run. So I grabbed the torch. I didn't get it. I basically stole it, and I'm now running it with it.
Well, it's kind of interesting. When we first announced it, the first beta, we had some negative comments. Why do we do this? We need another one, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And someone else said, you know what? People have been asking for this for like 10 years, 15 years. There were committees out there, and what would make it better? ColdFusion. And we just finally did it. And a lot of things that we're doing, it's been talked about for years. None of this, well, some of this is new, but some of these things that have been around in the community that people have been grousing about for years and years and years. And well, if not us, then who? If not now, then when?
Well, we see it in other communities, whether it's the Node communities with their whole IO and Dino, or just the browser wars, or various server technologies, Nginx and Apache and Golang has their stuff. When we have competition, and I, say that in a nice sense, when there's competition, it moves things forward. So I think it's a win for everybody.
I agree. I think the ColdFusion developer, the CFML developer, and now /BoxLang developer ultimately is going to win now, because the reality is that all of these the other two engines right now are basically pushing to what we push, right? And that's okay. Like you said, ultimately the developer needs to win, and that's what we want. We want the developer to win, right? And yeah, I know that some are going to get mad and pissed off at us, and why, but at the end of the day, we have a business to run, we have families to feed, and I think that we needed, like Ryan said, to control the ecosystem and the way that we were going to build it, and we believed that we could do it. Now, some may still want ill upon us because of that, but hey, it's okay.
One thing to keep in mind,
just life is.
The reality is Ortus is what, 50, 60 people these days?
Oh, wow.
So we're big enough that we can support this language in a very good fashion. I mean, our BoxLang team itself is, I don't know, a couple dozen, 2 dozen. And so we've got a lot of people that can support this. And so when you make a bug or you have a request, we're going to support you. We can do it very quickly. But we're also small enough to be very agile compared to some maybe other enterprise company that maybe can't move so fast or respond to the needs of the customer. So we're kind of in that really sweet spot that we're big enough to be sustainable. You're not betting on us. We're a known quantity. We've been doing this for a long time, professional support. And so it's very interesting. And we'll just have to see how things go. But you know what? Innovation, everyone steps up their game. And we've seen that in the last year.
Yeah.
And it's exciting.
have one question based on what you just said. Interesting piece, and then I want to put Ben on the spot. So being 50, 60 people, interesting when smaller companies think, oh, 50, 60 people, that's big. And then you talk to big companies, they're like, oh, I don't know. Do you think for larger enterprise adoption, being the small agile company, does that impact their decision to adopt BoxLang at all? Or do you think they enjoy the fact that you can be nimble? Is that...
Let's put it in context here. How big is the Lucee team? How big is the ColdFusion team at Adobe? And then look at how big is Ortus. So yeah, Adobe's this huge, great company that does many great things. We love Adobe, but how many of that huge is really focus so much on ColdFusion? And so when you kind of look at it in that context, I think we stack up extremely well.
Yeah, but it's a great question. I think that not every company will select the technology for the same reasons. There might be similarities, right? They want to see trajectory, they want to see stability, right? They want to see who's doing this. Documentation, right, was a big one for us. So even before we launched it, the book is written, right, and it's alive right now. So I think that we've seen the success of all the professional open source products that we did and the adoption that they have done in a lot of big companies, not only the small ones, and we kind of followed the same formula, right? But yes, there might be people that say no, there has to be a Fortune 500 company if we were going to deal with this, right? So we're going to play the game, and we'll probably have to address those issues because they do come up, right? But like Daniel said, right? Yeah, we might be not in the thousands or doing the 50 millions as well, right? But we get stuff done, and our trajectory proves that, right? So I think we have our cards that we can show, but that's a great question.
And I think that larger companies, we've seen it with Google, that if the product's not going with the way they want, they could always just can it. It's like that could be in your favor, where you're like, look, any big company, if it's a fraction of their revenue, they may say it's not worth our time anymore. For you guys, it's a big piece. You're like, you know what? It's gonna work. We're not gonna be dropping it. So
and I think that's how Kotlin kind of started. Kotlin, when Kotlin didn't get famous, so fast like that, it's basically they used it for them. That was the first success story. It was Kotlin used it for their IDEs, they use it for their own advantages, and when they saw the big success around it, it's basically when they open sourced it, right? So I think we believe in the same thing, is that we're using it now for our stuff, and we're starting to migrate all our stuff. We haven't even finished migrating all our stuff, to BoxLang, right? And we're not recoding. We're basically doing just CFML. And that's another question people had. It's like, oh, you're going to abandon CFML? Not really. I mean, for us, it's just, maintaining another engine. We already, look at the ColdBox matrix. It's like it runs like 50 different, permutations of CFML engines, right? So for us, it's like, no, we want to bring all this stuff available. We have 3 ecosystems that we can offer people now, right? If they don't find it in 3 ecosystems, that's a big advantage that not other languages have, right? So we want to bet on CFML and we want to bet on BoxLang, right? So I think that was important, but those are great questions because some CTOs do ask those type of questions, and we do have a lot of documentation prepared specifically for them to see the trajectories, to see where Ortus has been, where it's going, right, and present that comfort that can bring to them. And being professional open source is a huge deal, right? It's like, no, you can get a license, right? You can get a full SLA or a custom SLA, right? So that was a big part of when we started this. Like, yeah, some people can use it just for their own, projects and be open source forever. No problem. That's the way we believe. So, planting seeds that one day will germinate. But then for other companies that are more serious and they do want a support plan and they do want a very strict SLA, we'll accommodate.
Oh, so
cool. I don't remember who said it. Luis, I don't know if you remember, but the comment was made that before we even went live or went with the first release, we had a much the most tooling and documentation and everything else of any language they've ever seen before we even went live. Between all the docs, all the our VS Code extension, all the support in there. By the way, our BoxLang VS Code extension, you can use it for regular CFML. It's not just a BoxLang thing. But so we've had all the support. That's very important to us, right? Because we're developers. We eat our own dog food. We want to use this stuff and solve problems for ourselves and our clients. And then as we solve those problems, we're kind of thinking other people are going to have those same problems and are going to want to solve them.
Real quick, I know, Ben, you have to go. You guys mentioned the open source piece. I'm sure you guys probably may have to go too. Open source, does that hurt you at all for adoption being open source?
I think that there's
I know some fun out there where certain groups can't use open source.
Yeah, I think that this is not the same as 10 years ago, right? When something was open source, it was hard to look upon. But nowadays, everything is kind of almost open source at one point in time, right? Whether it's Microsoft open sourcing things, with VS Code and all their systems, right? So even Microsoft, right? So I think it's not the same as before. And that's why we offer the professional open source licenses, to give people that comfort that, it might be open source, but you're getting with a subscription a lot more things, right? Because not only do you get support, but you get a lot more premium modules that we're going to be building and giving you, right? So.
Right now, to get Ben excited for the future, give us a quick minute on maybe on the future. What's the future look like for BoxLang? Like, what are you guys coming out? What's the 1 to 3 year plan? You guys mentioned wanting to take over Groovy or add the Groovy module as well. What else should we look forward to?
Sure, I have my own. Do you want to do yours, Daniel? I know you have your own future. Start with yours, and I'll end with mine.
Have Ben fully using BoxLang? Does that count?
I got to get my command box working.
We'll help you with that, Ben. And you're such a prolific blogger that just you blogging about it would help us. So
yeah, it is very exciting, all the stuff that we've talked about, honestly.
Source features. You know what? Things change. So things that I thought would take a year or two to get to, we're already doing. And we're already talking about it. And so I don't even want to predict at this point, because I don't want to look stupid a year from now. So I'll let Luis do that.
Yeah, so we do have a 5-year plan. So every year we'll basically iterate over it. But we have a 5-year plan that we launched into the box. So we're going to be doing major releases every year. It doesn't mean that it's going to break or do backwards compatibility, break the compatibility. The idea is just to be basically doing major versions every year, right? Now, the cool thing is that since it's modular, if there is a case where we do have to break something, there will be a module for compatibility. And then that's it, right? So we do have an avenue on how to break things, and people can still remain. But the idea is for people to keep moving forward, right? So that 5-year plan is there. In terms of features, right? So lots of things going on. So tooling is one of them, right? So IDE supports for IntelliJ is coming, IDE supports for Sublime, IDE support for Z, right? So more IDEs on the horizon, more CLI tools, right? And extensions of the BoxLang version manager. We're going to be migrating finally command box into BoxLang. So command box basically becomes the BPM, or the BoxLang package manager, right? So there won't be two distinct products. There will be one. Remember, command box was built with Lucee, right? Now that's going to be completely removed, and basically it's just going to be part of BoxLang. So you install BoxLang, you have command box, period, right? So that one's going to be a big one, right? It's going to take some time for us to kind of get that going, but that one's also on the horizon. The desktop runtime is coming, right? So that's in terms of weeks that's going to show up, as well as the Azure serverless, right? So Azure serverless is coming as well in the couple of weeks as well. So those 2 runtimes are going to appear as well. And in terms of desktop, you're going to have 2 options. You're going to have Electron. So you can use Electron, or you can actually use Java FX, which is a pure native Java, basically analogous to Electron, but it's like 60-70% faster than Electron. It uses probably like 80% less memory. It's super lightweight, super fast. So that's coming in the horizon. And then after those runtimes, we're now going to be delving into Android and WebAssembly. So we want to make sure that we can delve into those 2 runtimes and have something by hopefully next year. Our BoxLang administrator, we haven't even completed yet. right? Everything has been done through CFconfig, but the BoxLang administrator is a big part that people want. They want the nice UI, right? They want a desktop experience, and this is something that it's going to be working on, that we've been working on already for about 6 months. So that's coming as well, right? So that's a little bit of the things that we're working on that are coming, but we do have tons of things that are still now we can finally innovate and start feeling excited about the possibilities because we have no barriers.
If you want to see all that and more, April 29th, 2026, Washington, D.C. is Into the Box.
Ben Nadel speaking. Ben Nadel speaking about his next
you heard it here first.
I don't care if you want to talk about your dog, Lucy. Just come out, Ben, and get your mind blown with all the cool BoxLang stuff.
Ben's gonna present how to get command box working with BoxLang.
Exactly.
We'll do a workshop.
It's going to be a workshop. It'll be a workshop.
Modernizing Ben's command box.
All right, so Ben, depending on your answer to this, we may cut this segment out. No, I'm kidding. What's your level of excitement, like when we started versus the end, kind of being able to talk to these guys?
I'm definitely ending more excited than I started. I mean, I was obviously excited going into the conversation because it's just fascinating stuff, and you guys are always good to talk to. Obviously, you've moved the community forward probably more than anybody else. So,
whether they like it or not.
Yeah, no, but it is super fascinating. I mean, basically every question that I've asked so far, the answer was, "Oh, BoxLang already does that, actually." So that's kind of awesome. I'm excited to start playing around with it.
All right.
Yeah. No.
Thank you.
Cool.
We'll get you on BoxLang Academy. All the videos are free right now for the rest of the year, I think, Luis. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, we're building just like we did with CFcasts. We did a special just BoxLang Academy. That's learn.boxlang.io, and everybody can go there and basically grab all of the series that we're building for free. So everything will be available for you for a whole period of a year, and then by Into the Box May of next year, we're going to start locking down a few things, obviously, and that helps the project, right?
Yeah.
So just like CFcasts helps the project, right? Just the BoxLang Academy will be the same. Right? But yeah, no, thank you guys. I really appreciate it. I love you guys. I've been hanging out with you guys for years. So I wish we could do it more often in person as well. But we're really passionate and excited about this, and it's what we feel that the community needed, and hopefully people can start collaborating more and helping out and moving forward.
All right. So if any of the users or any of the not users, the watchers, listeners want to get in touch with you guys, how do they find you?
So they can go to boxlang.io, and I think from there they can contact us with everything, or they can look for in all the different social platforms available. Just search my name. I'll pop right there as well. And then for Daniel,
well, they're on the CFML Slack.
CFML Slack. Oh yeah.
We've got the Box Team Slack. We've got the Ortus community.ortussolutions.com. We're visible everywhere. If you say Brad's name 3 times, he appears.
He'll pop up
2 more times,
and he's gonna mention it 4 times, and he'll solve your problems too.
Yep. Yeah, we're thinking about having a Brad GPT, but we're not quite
there. And now, and now's the proper time to mention the other podcast.
Modernize or Die podcast. First and third Tuesday of the month. You can see me or Eric or Grant or Jacob or any of us giving the news on Ortus and what's going on in the BoxLang, as well as the CFML community and events.
Nice. All right, guys, thank you very much for joining us. Ben, of always, thank you for joining as well. And for everyone watching, listening, thank you for tuning in. Hopefully you guys learned some good stuff and can take this with you and go try it. Go try BoxLang out there, guys.
Bye.
All right.
Try BoxLang.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Bye.